Well, hello and welcome to our latest Keep Optimising live Q&A expert panel webinar. And yes, I do say those words in a different order every time I say it. Been a couple of years now, we're still not really sure what order they should go in. But welcome to this. We are tackling a massive topic in e-commerce. This time we are tackling attribution. What is it? How you should do it? And actually, more importantly, we're going to be answering your questions about marketing attribution. So I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of the Keep Optimising podcast and the conduit of your questions for this session. So please get your questions coming into us now. Wherever you're watching, if you put a comment in the thing, wherever it is you're watching, and you send that through to us, that will magically appear in my vision. So hello, AJ Saunders. Great to have you tuning in on YouTube, and thank you for saying hello. Yes, and yes, you can distract me by sending me comments as well via those methods. Really looking forward to getting your questions and posing it to our experts. We've had a few sent in advance, so it's going to be a packed session. So get your questions in early. Don't wait for 40 minutes before you do it, because you will be disappointed. I can't answer the questions I've got, so there will be some merging going on. Now, a huge thank you before we get underway to our sponsors, Triple Whale, who've been the sponsors of this month on the podcast. And if you want to know more about Triple Whale, you can book your demo with them via keepopt.com/Triple Whale. Now, before we get into things, one last thing to tell you about is last one of these, I said we were going to be launching Chloe's e-commerce club. Well, we've now launched Chloe's e-commerce club, and we are open for you to apply to join us. It's kind of a minimum viable product MVP forum-y thing. It's not on Facebook, it's on our own platform, and we're up to, I think we've got about 45 members at the moment. We'll be adding some more on Thursday, and the discussions are far more active than I thought they'd be, with only 40 people in, if I'm being brutally honest. So we're currently looking to bring more people in, so as we can get more debate going, and I can learn about what you want from it, so we can do more with it. It's free to join, and you can apply via keepopt.com/club. Right. Promo opportunities done and dusted. Let's introduce, or not quite introduce, but let me talk you through who we've got joining us as guests today. So these are the people who joined me in the podcast episodes we've been putting out this month about attribution. We've got slight guest changes from advertised. So Rabah from Triple Whale unfortunately can't join us for the session. He's been pulled into more important things. I know, who knew there was things that were more important than this webinar? But unfortunately, he's had to cancel today. So we're Rabah free. We do have Jo Young from UniFida. She's joining us, and you can check out UniFida's attribution FAQs or ask your own at keepopt.com/UniFida. We've also got Jill Quick is joining us from the Colouring In department, and you can use the free GA4 migration plan to help you get started or to check your setup. It's excellent. I've had a read, well worth a read if you are beginning or want to double check you've done the right thing with your GA4 setup. You can get that via keepopt.com/the Colouring In department, USA spelling. And Jo Davis from Sweet Analytics unfortunately is not able to join us, but her very able colleague Oliver Spark is joining us. You'll be able to tell which one he is, because he's the man on the panel. And despite the fact we've got Oliver joining us, the call to action remains the same. So you can book a demo of Sweet Analytics at sweetanalytics.com. And as I said, I am your host, Chloe Thomas, host of the Keep Optimising an eCommerce MasterPlan podcast. And if you want to hear the episodes with all these people, then you can find all our marketing attribution stuff at keepopt.com/attribution. But we're 4 minutes in, we're nearly 5 minutes in, and we haven't yet brought out our guest experts. We haven't yet asked them any questions. So I think it's time we got them up on screen with me. So hello, our marvelous attribution experts. We are just a warning for everybody. Today we are fighting the feedback, so we have got everyone on strict muting instructions. So if there's some please unmute, I apologize in advance for us using that overused phrase, but it's going to make your ears love us for doing this. So I'm going to ask each of you to give a little bit of intro and a bit of background about your company. Jo, let's start with you, and then we'll work our way around the circle.
Hi, thank you, Chloe. Welcome, everyone. So I'm Jo. I'm from UniFida, and UniFida is a team of data-driven marketing experts. We're here to make sure that our clients get the most out of their data to improve their marketing. So my background is in marketing analytics, across a hybrid of sort of analytics from pricing and research, obviously to attribution. And one of my specialist areas is media measurement, which of course attribution sits in. And I've been there at the beginning with attribution and pioneered some of the first projects of joining online and offline data together, and then taking the results of MMM or econometrics, the measurement of TV and radio, and putting that into attribution as well, and more recently carbon counting using the marketing results that you can get out of attribution.
The full gamut of complex attribution going on there. Brilliant. Thank you, Jo. Oliver, could you intro yourself and Sweet Analytics, please?
Yeah, hi, Chloe. Hi, everyone. I'm Oliver. I started Sweet Analytics almost 5 years ago. Sweet Analytics is a customer and marketing analytics platform. We're deeply involved in the whole attribution question and often work with clients on that really important topic. I myself am a retailer. My principal calling card is I ran the White Company, and that was a business in the old days where one had that lovely thing, which was one had single channel life, and we had codes, and we were able to attribute nice and simply. And I've moved through my career into the world, as Jo mentions, of really complex world where you've got TV, you've got a variety of different channels. So I've very much been at the front end of that question, which I think most marketing leaders has, where you've got all your spend, and then you've been to see every agency, and in different silos they give you a different number, and it adds up to about 3 times the amount that you've actually got in the till, as I call it. So that really, I think, is the practical experience of marketing attribution, and I think that's probably what a lot of the people here listening will be today, was they'll have their individual silos of numbers, and where they really struggle is really understanding, which one's working and what context that is in.
The good old days where there was one marketing channel with one foolproof tracking system. I remember it just.
Exactly. Direct mail, Chloe. It was a good. There was once a world without lots of channels.
It was lovely, but not the future. So thank you, Oliver. Jill, would you please introduce yourself to our audience as well, please?
Yes, thank you for having me. And I am a freelance analytics consultant. So my entire world at the moment is specifically GA4 migrations and training. My background has been a marketeer at heart. I'm very fortunate that I found something that I really enjoy at a very early age. So it's a good 20-ish years into that journey now. And I like that, coming from a marketing background and accidentally falling into analytics. I think it's nice to have a balance of understanding what marketeers want and need, and how you can apply that to the tools to get the answers. So I guess between the other panelists on here, I'm at the coal face of the web analytics performance, and then it's how you feed that into other channels. And I've got lots of stories about how to do it well and not well, and things like that, the foundations. So yeah.
Excellent. So guys, everyone watching, we have an impressive range of takes on the marketing attribution process amongst our experts. So do get your questions in ASAP if you want them answered, because like I said, I have quite the list that people have sent me in advance to ask of this kind of mega mind group we've got here. There's so many places we could start with this. And I've had the obvious cheeky question submitted by one of the members of the Chloe's eCommerce Club. So we're going to start with the cheeky question, which you're welcome to laugh at or take very seriously, depending on, you know more about this than I do. So Neil Park from Gerald, which is an amazing business based up in Norwich. Neil has asked, does affiliates ever stack up, which I think is in my experience the reason why a lot of brands got their knickers in a twist about attribution back in the day. Oliver, you've unmuted, so we'll make you answer this one first.
But I think it's a fascinating affiliates and the real thing is also, I think at the moment affiliates becomes a bit more blended in with the whole influencer issue as well. So I think I'm not quite sure what Neil's definition is there, but the age-old thing about affiliates is that, and Jill I'm sure will crop in, is that if you look at it at individual silo level, you see fantastic response rates because everyone's moved out of another channel, gone for a code, and you end up with what looks like really, really decent, super results from affiliates. In my own view, and we have multi-touch attribution, so we understand at Suite where people have come from before they go for that last click approach. I'm not a fan of affiliates, and because of that understanding of the multi-touch point, I am a fan if you can get to somewhere other than the discount codes, which I'm sure all affiliate platforms will tell you they can. But having seen multi-touch attribution, I'm not a fan of affiliates.
Spoken like a true mail order member of the mail order tribe. But yeah, I think I would start with answering Neil by saying not all affiliates are created equal. So when you're saying affiliates or influencers and lumping them all on together, you need to get more into that. Joe, you were just unmuting, so I'm guessing you've got an opinion on this one too.
Yes. So I was going to say it's quite a broad group, isn't it, affiliates? And where we come from is actually from the customer, as Oliver was saying. So if you split it into the behavior of new and existing customers for a start, they behave in a different way for affiliates, because you can see, like Oliver, we do individual level multi-touch attribution, and we're looking at the customer and how they behave and how they interact with affiliates. And the other area is to look at it across the sales funnel. I think if you look at it in aggregate, quite often it's right at the end of their journey because they want to get that discount code. But actually, if you delve down into it, you will see that for some customers, actually, it is the beginning of their journey. And without that, you probably wouldn't have got their attention, potentially. But it's about actually understanding by affiliate and by different types of customers. So yes, does it pull its weight? Well, the answer is it depends. And we've seen some really quite significant differences in the results between affiliates, even just in terms of the value of the purchase through certain affiliates. Some can be 10 times others, and it might be to do with the promotion, or it may be to do with the relationship they have with that affiliate. So yes, to break it down, as Oliver said, into actually where is it working in those journeys, how does it perform. If it's at the beginning, then actually you might not have got that sale if it had not have, if you didn't have that affiliate there. So it's really, really important to actually start with the customer and have a look at how they interact with the affiliates.
Can I just chip in on top of that? Because I think it's really important that if you use the broader definition of influencers, for instance, they really might be top of the funnel. And the problem with most tracking systems and marketing attribution is it really comes down to UTMs. So attribution is very much UTM dominated. And what the problem is if you take something like influencers in that broad definition, is still, you can see sometimes, and not always, but you can sometimes see a big post have a big bounce or in traffic, but you don't actually see it in the underlying touch point analysis. And that's because of the lack of use of UTMs. So I think going back to Joe's point, it so much depends on definition of affiliates and also which bit of the journey, because you can be driving, as you say, lots of people in the top of the funnel, but they may actually not show up in your attribution because there is the whole UTM problem that underlines this whole conversation.
See, you're hitting on exactly why I wanted to ask this question first, is because it gets right to the heart of the attribution piece, which Jill, you and I were talking about, was just starting to understand that customer journey, because it's both about those different types of affiliates and also the different channels you're using. If you're not using many other channels, you're going to get less overlap than you're using more. So Jill, how do you approach that kind of is one of my marketing channels worth it angle?
So I think picking up on what Joe and Oliver said, actually, I think one is, what's the objective of any of your marketing campaigns? And that, you know, if it's activation to get somebody started on the journey, you can kind of work out where it might fit in a journey. For me, the foundations and linking to the UTM parameters, part of the journey I have when I work with clients on like their analytics and getting things clean, and sometimes they're chomping at the bit. They're like, I want to do a linear attribution with like brand and non-brand. And I'm like, okay, first of all, your UTM parameters are broken. Your sources and mediums are the wrong way around. I saw one yesterday where they made up their own UTM term and wondered why that was coming into their all pages report. I've seen in GA4 in particular, because it has a different default channel grouping to GA3, things aren't being categorized the way that they were expecting them to be categorized. So I think getting things tracked correctly from the offset is really important, because without that, you can make really bad choices. And going into the really boring but very critical components of your admin configuration. Doing some training this morning, like people's eyes, they roll to the back of their head because they're like, oh no, it's the boring part. I'm like, no, listen up, people. Referral exclusions lists, host names, what are you tracking? Because part of it is trying to work out, if you don't trust the data, why don't you trust the data? And that can help unpick a problem, which might not be that it was affiliate or not affiliate. It could be there was something wrong with your admin settings or the data collection, which is why it's not doing what you want it to do or what you think you want it to do. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it hits on that kind of core complexity at the heart of attribution, which I think is the reason why so many brands do it badly, is because as we spoke about in every single interview this month, you've got to know what you're actually trying to achieve. You've got to take a strategic approach to it, not think, I'm going to flick this button and everything's going to make sense. But you've also got to get deep down in the nitty gritty of the data and work out what's actually accurate. You know, it's the number historically when analytics was easier and I used to actually, dive into retailers. You dive in and you go, so how much are you spending on Facebook ads? And you've not added any codes to that. So it's all coming through as Facebook organic. Oh, and you see the social media person's face fall. It's like, oh, I thought that was our organic. No. It might be, but we don't know because you haven't got those basics. And there's such a lot of nitty gritty stuff to get through. So I've got another. So those of you who are listening, if you want a question, get it in the chat functionality so as it comes through to me. But I've got another question that was submitted to one of my LinkedIn posts by Brian Burkhead, who again is being quite specific, which I suspect means we're going to go, who knows what we're going to go and answer to this question. But it's, how should you decide the length of the time window during which you count media channel contributions, which I think is one of the, I'm not sure we got massively into this across the month, which is one of the reasons I want to bring it up now. But I think it's one of those really crucial bits is, if you're talking about an influencer or, a voucher code affiliate, that's not a long time span probably. But a catalog mailing is a much longer time span. A TV ad might be something else, a door drop, an email. They're all going to have different numbers. So how do we start doing it? Jill, I'm going to come straight back to you because you're nodding eagerly.
Yeah. I mean, so the first thing that comes to my mind is that actually you may not have control over that look back window. It's going to be at the behest of the source of truth you're looking at. So if you're looking at GA4 or GA3, there is a default look back window for conversions. Universal, it will go back 6 months. In GA4, for the attribution models, it's 30 days. And for all of the conversion reports, it's 90 days. So it is a shorter look back window. So if you wanted to say 6 months, tough, you have less time because cookies, we just can't track people the way that we wanted to. But then you might be looking at Facebook, and I'm not a Facebook expert, but I'm guessing that has its own look back window, as does LinkedIn, as does whatever else you're working with. So it's trying to find a balance of what is possible within all of your data sources, and then trying to get some commonality, or at least understanding that there may be there may be some wiggle room because there's a dependency on how far you can go back. Some of the things I've been doing to try and mitigate, the shorter look back window is to go back to the fundamentals again of having more than one conversion, not just purchase, have a bundle of micro conversions, which could end up stretching over a longer period of time. And I think it was something, it might have been Joe, the Joe that's here, or the other Joe, so I can't remember which one I heard, but they were saying about the Facebook thing, that you can turn Facebook off and then loads of sales went, because that was the job of that Facebook channel, was to get them to convert. So there's different roles for different channels, and there's different look back windows. So I would love to actually hear Joe and Oliver's feedback of how do you tackle that when all of the sources are changing and don't have consistency with how long.
Should I go next on that? I mean, the first thing to say is, your point, Jill, about each platform having its own attribution window, that is unfortunately, once we come to marketing attribution, is just the facts of life, and they are all different, and that you are never going to get any consistency in it. And I think that's the first learn for anyone who's perhaps at the beginning of this journey, is that there isn't a common definition. Facebook clicks are different from Google clicks, are different from other things. So the first thing people have to understand is, when you're just using platform attribution, you're never going to get anything other than platform attribution looked at in a single channel. What you can obviously do, and I'm sure Joe at UniFida does the same, but we at Suite, we can change our window to whatever we want. If you're a furniture business, it probably has a much longer cycle for people to come through than it does if you're, I don't know, a vitamin business on repeat or something. But, there's very different, and it's really important that you understand the length of touch points, and the way to do that is to be able to open and decide upon what is the appropriate touch point window. A single touch point window is it's great because it gives consistency, but it doesn't actually give the answer for businesses across different sectors. So I think it's really important to understand that you've got two different layers in the attribution question. You've got, what does the platforms tell me? And that includes Google, but they're all different. And then ultimately, what can an attribution platform do? And, what variety, how can we change, and how can we look at different things? Because, and again, not every platform offers that flexibility, but it is really important, in my opinion, that you do have that flexibility, and you're not just stuck with I'm going to look at a 30-day window, or I'm going to look at the 7 or whatever. I'm sure, Joe, you have probably similar experience on that.
Joe, I'll come to you in a second, because I think one of the things that builds on what Jill was initially saying is know your data. And one of that is, what is my Facebook pixel set to? What is my Google Ads pixel set to? What is my XYZ pixel set to? And probably, how are they counting money as well? Because that's another one which people build these tracking codes, and you'll find one platform is Inc VAT and Inc discount. So it's maximum possible price. Then you find another platform is X VAT, X discount, and maybe even reporting in dollars when you're selling in pounds. And suddenly you realize this data you've been looking at for years is actually completely mismatched because you didn't set it up right in the first place, which is a tedious process to fix, but is, until you know what your apples are, you can't find any way of dealing with them. So I just wanted to make sure we were making that point really clear for the audience, Oliver, because I think it was a really, really good one. Joe, what's your take on time windows and pixels and all this great stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same. I mean, obviously, yes, if you're using a preset platform, then that's what you've got. But yeah, it's very much about your media mix, as well as your the industry that you're in. You can have two in exactly the same industry, but if their media mix is different, so every media has a different curve in terms of its response. Direct mail used to be direct response, but now it's much more of an awareness channel. So yeah, what we do is take into account the media mix, as well as how long people are taking to actually finally do the goal that you want them to do, and that comes around using your data, and that's the beauty of a first party data system, isn't it? It's your data. You can see those journeys. You can change what it's actually saying. If you've got lots of things happening very close together, so somebody has done lots of clicks on PPC, you don't want them all to have they're not all responsible for the sale. There's one at the beginning that happened 2 weeks after you sent them a direct mail, or you don't give all of those very short things that happen very closely together equal weighting. So yeah, it's about your media mix and what your data is telling you, and it's really, really important to be able to change that and get the data to learn. And you're happy. It needs no black boxes don't help you to improve your marketing. They might give you an answer, but they don't actually help you to understand exactly what the customer behavior is. So yeah, that was a really good question, because the answer again is it varies depending on your industry, your media mix, and what your customer behavior is like.
Everyone watching, we are not going to tell you email is 30 minutes and catalogs are 3 years and affiliates are 30 seconds. We're not going to tell you that. And those numbers I just read out were purposefully utterly ridiculous. Just in case any of you are going to assume I'm getting something vaguely right there. It's all about analysing your data, understanding your data, and making decisions around your business, which was I think we gave the episode with Joe from Sweet Analytics, Oliver's colleague, the title, is it an art or is it a science? But I think we talked around that in every single one of our episodes, because this is not, it is a ones and zeros game, but it really isn't a ones and zeros game. It's so much about interpretation and understanding of your business and the wider things. But Oliver, you were about to come in and add something, weren't you?
I think just on that point, Chloe, to be honest, I think the really important bit is the understanding. And I was with a really sharp CEO of a business the other day, investing heavily in attribution platforms, really, really successful, £40 million turnover business. And it was a very rare conversation where what the CEO wanted was not actually just an answer, but he brought to it an understanding of the fundamentals of the business. And I think that's what Joe from from Sweet was talking about when she was there, is, you really do need to understand the fundamentals of the business, because any attribution platform, and, an attribution platform that says it's cracked iOS 14 is, I'm afraid, in the fanciful category. So, you really mustn't be deceived into thinking there are magic answers out there, and that it's not actually it's a very complicated topic, of which even when you get the best science we can all bring to you, you still have to have an element of understanding of fundamentals. And so the point I just really want to stress is, we may talk about all the different attribution windows and all those questions, but actually you still just got to go back to, you're never going to get a perfect answer, and you're never going to get a platform that gives you a single dashboard that provides you everything you want. You've got to be able to have a broader understanding of media mixes, length of types of business. It's a really complex topic that unfortunately does need a number of layers of interpretation before you get to a simple answer.
But it's complex. But I think for me, one of the big themes that ran through all these episodes was understand what your strategy and your objectives are, and then find the solution that works for you. And for some businesses, that's setting GA4 up correctly, so as the data's there when you want to dip in and answer a quick question. For other businesses, it's building a unique, bespoke, behemoth system and a team to look at it. And for others, it's something in the middle. But unless you know what you're actually trying to achieve, you can't, as well as getting your data right, you can't pull all this together, because you will end up getting lost and confused. But I think something which came across to me across all the episodes was, if you get clear on what you're trying to achieve, which might be the question, does affiliates ever stack up, then all your decision-making processes are so much easier, and your workload is so much easier. And then once you've answered that might spring other questions, and it becomes, I think, I can't remember who we were talking about this with, but we were talking about how it's not, you don't create someone over there who worries about your attribution. It's got to be across the whole team, because it impacts on everything, and you can read it wrongly if you're not getting that whole oh well, we were trying some new creative on YouTube last week, on our YouTube ads last week, that's why. So it does make sense that went up or that went down, because we were testing something new. And unless you've got that full picture, you're not going to get that whole piece. So where do I go with the question from this? Because I'm just regurgitating back at you things you all already know. So I think we'll try and move a little bit away from the heavy duty stuff. And I'm going to ask you a question I always like to ask in these sessions, which is, is this the year for getting your marketing attribution sorted? Because one of the reasons I wanted to do this month is because I think people are in this space of suddenly all the CPA costs are going up, suddenly consumers have got less money to spend, and suddenly we're actually having to be good marketers again, which I think is an excellent thing. But I think that puts good marketing attribution and understanding where you're spending and answering that headline question of, is the money we're spending being put in, where's that half that's misaligned? Chloe can't remember the quote. You all know what I'm thinking about. So is this the year we should be doing marketing attribution? Jill, all right, if I come to you first with this rather big one? You unmuted, so I'm going to assume yes.
And obviously, like I've got my own bias because I work with like American companies, it's European companies, different size companies. This, for me, it feels like with the announcement of GA4, whether or not clients go to GA4, analytics, because it was free, I don't think, and we talked about this, Chloe, didn't we? I don't think people gave it the care it needed because they just popped the code on and they were like, I'm done. I can just log in and just assume that everything is cool. This transition is making people carefully consider what are their measurement objectives, what should they be tracking, what could they be tracking, again, feeding back into those measurement objectives. And if you get those fundamentals right, in conjunction with a lot of mistakes, well, not mistakes is the wrong word, issues around the data collection with consent management platforms and consent mode and that screwing around with things, just getting that right, it feels like this year marketers are going to be in a much stronger position to say, no, we are collecting the right data without making mistakes. This is clean. And then they can transition through a journey, starting off with, how did people find the website, a very basic attribution, and moving towards the more complicated stuff that you could be doing with the likes of Joe and Oliver. But to get there, you've again, we're repeating ourselves, you've got to start with the fundamentals. Do I think it's going to be the year that every single brand of a decent size is going to be building their own attribute? I don't think so. But that's because the people I'm dealing with all the time, it's getting the fundamentals right and actually carefully considering what we're doing, because they're having to spend some money, because GA4 needs a bit more care, especially if you're in a larger organization. They need to spend some money on it, or they're going to another platform, so they're spending some money on it, and that changes people's willingness, I guess, to care a bit more, because it's not free anymore. And I think that's a good thing, that analytics is getting to be a pay-to-play environment, and people take more care with things when you spend money on them. So I think that's a benefit of that.
Sorry, Oliver, what's your take? I gave the mute warning at the beginning and I muted myself and failed to unmute. Sorry, everybody. I was saying it's almost the perfect storm. Oliver, what's your take on it? Is this the year for marketing attribution?
I think, Chloe, the GA4 bit that Jill brings up is a key business issue for everybody. So I think that should just be sort of taken as a topic on its own. What my real hate at the moment, and hate's always a strong word, but I really think that there's an increasing pressure in the current market for people to try and answer the attribution question. And the answer to the attribution is not just, I'm going to go and sign up for some platform and it's going to tell me the answer. I think it's really, really important that in this year that people start understanding. And I always ask the questions first off of, do you understand your blended ROAS? Do you understand what your cost of acquisition is? And do you know how many new customers you need to be recruiting? Because I reckon probably, and Joe and Jill might have different experience, but I reckon probably 80% of the time I ask those questions, I get no as an answer. And until you've got those questions sorted, then you can't even really go into the attribution question. So I think for most brands, it's really about, and this is every year is an important, because attribution is a key topic. But this year is no different from any others. You've got to understand, we've all used the word fundamentals quite a lot. You've got to understand the fundamentals, and the fundamentals aren't signing up for a platform that gives you an answer. Yeah, you've got to have more understanding, and you've got to understand the basics before you start getting over fixated on the minutiae, because get the top level right, and then that will start guiding you on where you need to go next. I don't know, Joe, you
Yeah.
perhaps, I don't know where you come from on that curve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with Jill in terms of, I think the whole GA thing has made people look at the way that media is performing. It's one of those subjects, isn't it? Do we GA or do we first party data? What is it we're trying to do and what are we measuring? And equally, yes, we always go in, don't we, from the first. Essentially what we're talking about is not attribution, it's about marketing optimization, and it's what bang are you getting for your buck, and that's always been it. And attribution may be the answer. I think one of the things that I'm hoping will come out is this lack of silos, because marketing optimization is about pulling all the levers of all the different media you've got, and they do work. Some work together, some work against each other, some are better for new customers, some are better for existing customers, and if it breaks down some of those silos and actually gets all the different marketers to sit down and talk about the marketing budget and optimization, then I think that'll be brilliant, and attribution sort of goes some way to do that. PPC and email, that if you get your PPC if it's going out of control, if you can get your email going out correctly to your existing customers, then you can sometimes get the PPC down. So I think in that sense, yes, I think marketing optimization is going to be a very, very big topic this year. GA is definitely going to sort of increase the conversations around attribution, I think, and media measurement.
It does seem to me, what you say there, Joe, about the let's hope it gets the teams talking together. I'm currently outside of the Keep Optimising podcast. I'm currently deep in the world of overstocks and excess stock, and I've been involved in an event for someone else. I'm currently putting together my own event, and definitely, I think across that and across lots of conversations I'm having in the industry at the moment, I think we're heading on a trajectory of, in order to solve these problems I mentioned earlier, and the privacy issues and all the rest of it, we're getting to a point where not only do the marketing teams all need to talk together, but they need to talk to product as well. And we need to start factoring margin into our decisions, not just giving away all our margin, but actually liaising with the buying team on feeding data back, feeding data forwards, and all the rest of it. So I think we're heading towards, I hope we're heading towards a world where e-commerce businesses are all talking to each other in a lot more detail. But we are coming towards the end. So I'm going to ask you all my final question, which is, for the brands listening now, if you could give them one piece of advice on what to do to improve their marketing optimization, their marketing attribution as we go into the year ahead, what would it be? Jill, I'm going to come to you last because I'm pretty sure what yours is going to be. And I think it would be on the basis of what you're seeing with brands and what I'm seeing with brands. I think it'd be a really good note to end on. Joe, I'll come to you first, then I'll come to you, Oliver. So what should be the must do on someone's list at the moment?
Mine might be very similar to Oliver's, as would be start collecting your first party data and understanding what your customer behavior is, and how your marketing is changing that or influencing that, really. Yeah, so definitely first party data, get it all in order.
Quick follow-up to that one, Joe. We've kind of glossed over what first-party data is. So we're talking about deploying your own pixels rather than Google's pixels to track all of this, and some email data and other things as well.
Yeah, and particularly if you're in direct mail, because obviously direct mail is quite expensive. So you should be making sure that you understand if somebody goes from being mailed something to then an email or then through a PPC click. I mean, the UTM tagging is a big part of being able to understand that as well, but it is, so that's your own pixel on your website, collecting your visitors, where they've come from, where they're going to, but also combining that with what you would normally have on a direct marketing database, so for your first party data, transactional data.
Excellent, thank you. I suddenly realised I was going to get emails from people going, "What were they? What was this? Is it this first party bit?" Thank you very much, Joe. Oliver, your take on what should be on the to-do list for this year?
The first thing is to make sure you've got clear understanding of your costs. because so often it's very easy to have a platform without all your costs. And, even into Jill's world of GA4, how you get your direct, if you go for offline, or if it's PR, or even if it's influencers, those are all very difficult costs normally to feed into a platform, but you have to understand your base costs. So number one thing, understand your costs. Number two, because these are the only numbers that don't change, costs don't change, sales don't change. Yeah. So those are your two, unwavering things. Forget about attribution models and what Facebook says and what any other thing says. Those are your two. What's in the till and what it's cost you are the two things. And then what you really need to know is how many new customers you've driven. Yeah. And what it has cost you to drive those new customers, so that you are on a daily basis monitoring your blended ROAS on new customers. And that is the fundamental that you really need to be putting in place before, I'm afraid, we go into too many weeds around attribution. But those are my must-dos in order to make sure people are successful in this year.
Love this. Thank you, Oliver. We are definitely, guys, we're sticking with this fundamentals message for you all out there. Jill, what would you say should be number one on someone's list on the attribution front this year?
Now you think would be like, am I that predictable with my answers? I mean, if you are using Google Analytics and you want to continue to use Google Analytics, you do need to start that transition, or wherever you're moving to, you need to have that transition. But actually thinking on what Joe and Oliver have said, I'd probably say for people watching or listening, if you're interested in this topic, so you've signed in and watched a webinar on attribution, depending on your role in the business, have an honest conversation with yourself about your knowledge of certain areas of the business and certain areas of your acumen around this. And if you want to do more of this, then find where your weaker spots are. So if you, I don't know, like if what Joe said about first party data and you go, never heard of that, didn't know that was a thing, then go off and investigate it. If you actually have been spending loads of money because you just care about getting people to the website, but you've never actually thought, do we make any margin on this? Go and have those conversations. I found when I've been a marketeer, having cups of tea and conversations, or Zoom cups of tea and conversations, helped me understand what was going on. And that silo that we've talked about, sometimes people gate kept that information. Like I was told I couldn't know what the cost was because that wasn't our job. I mean, it's why I called myself the colouring in department. We were the department that just messed around and made things look pretty. But actually, if marketing's job is to be growth and we're trying to build a business, we need to be privy to those conversations as well. So edging your way into different departments or getting that information with a view of suggesting to people that the outcome of this is because you want to get a better handle on attribution for a number of profitable reasons for the company. But if you've got any grey areas in that learning, go and find it. There's loads of information on this and resources that you can tap into. So I would start there.
I love that as another action. So a brilliant set of actions to keep you all busy, taking those fundamental steps with your marketing attribution. Huge thank you, Joe, Oliver, Jill. Brilliant to be catching up with you all again. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to remove you from the screen now and wrap this up with everybody. So as we said, Rabah couldn't join us today, but you can book a demo with Triple Whale at keepop.com/Triple Whale. You can check out UniFida's attribution FAQs or ask your own at keepop.com/UniFida. That definitely doesn't look like Oliver, but we'll look at Joe Davis. But you can book a demo of Suite Analytics at suiteanalytics.com. And if you are yet to do your GA4 activity, get on with it now. And there's a brilliant blog post that we've linked to there from Jill at keepopt.com/the colouring in department. And all of that content and all those links will by tomorrow be at the page keepopt.com attribution, together with the podcast episodes and the replay of this video. So do head there to get hold of that when you can. And Edward Scott Finnegan says, good session, folks. Thank you, Edward. Much appreciated. Thanks for coming and tuning in live as well. Last thing to tell you all is that in March, we're doing email marketing, going to one of the solid drivers of sales for your e-commerce business. And across that that month. We've got some brilliant ones lined up. I would say the general theme is email is awesome, and you definitely need to be doing it this year. So we're going to be doing high converting flows for luxury brands with the brilliant Hannah Spicer. Lots of tips in there, even if you're not in luxury. We're going to be doing lazy email marketing with Gabe Macaluso from Omnisend, which is slightly more work than it sounds, but is very, very clever stuff. Then we've got the key to success with SMS with Kerry McDonald, because we've got to do some SMS. And we're going to do another slightly controversial title, Stopping the Weekly Newsletters with Emil Christensen from Drip. And then there's a super secret, exciting guest, which I'm hopefully recording with tomorrow, who will be coming up as our last one. And you'll be able to sign up for the email Q&A from tomorrow. So thank you all for tuning in. It's been brilliant hanging out with our attribution guests. I hope you've all got as much from it as Edward and AJ Saunders has said as well. He says it's been a fantastic session. So definitely happy people on the live stream. You guys can now catch the replay, watch it with your team, get your marketing optimization in order for this year. And thank you all for joining us. Bye.